Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews. Today we've got ourselves another brand new PNSO release, and boy, what a beautiful looking figure this is. As you can see, we've got ourselves a Dinocephalosaurus, and I have never had a figure of this species before, so, you know, something that's actually quite common when it comes to PNSO. They always deliver me really cool new species for my collection, but this one looks really neat. Definitely a very unique looking and fun looking figure. As far as the packaging goes, pretty much the standard stuff that you usually see from PNSO. You can see nothing really too different going on here. So let's pop this box open and check it out. So of course inside we've got all the fun stuff that we usually do. First of all, the booklet, which you can see is going to feature some really fun images, artwork, and information. Of course, photo gallery images here like dino toy photography, all kinds of, well, it's not dino, but all kinds of stuff. Prehistoric toy photography, I guess you can say, throughout the course of the booklet. And as per usual, even though I haven't actually read this yet, I guarantee you it is a fun read, because these always are. And then you also have the poster, which does maybe look like it's actually the figure, but it also might be just some art. We'll have to see here as we open it up, but I'm definitely going to have to readjust the camera. So it is absolutely just some regular old beautiful artwork and not a picture of the figure. Let's go ahead and pick the camera up so you can see it. And look at that. That is absolutely incredible. And honestly, even though the color scheme that we have here is kind of similar to this, I really wish we would have had that color scheme specifically, because that is super striking and honestly just beautiful. But the entire image is fantastic. You can see that is, as always, a frame-worthy poster from PNSO. And then we've got our Dinocephalosaurus figure itself that my camera instantly does not want to focus on, I guess because it's just so small and thin, I don't know. But it is really nice looking, and you can very clearly see it does have some elements of the actual version we had seen in that poster, but not quite as highly detailed of a paint scheme. Boy, I can definitely tell I'm going to have my problems with the camera focusing on this one, but it does look super, super cool. So I'm going to readjust the camera. Why bother messing around with this focusing problem, and we'll get a closer look at it right now. So here we go. Starting in the head sculpt, you can see the head sculpt does look really good. It has its mouth wide open, looking pretty much ferocious, I would say. Absolutely terrifying, honestly. The fine detail looks really good, even if the head is really quite small. One thing I do notice is the eye is painted really nicely with a green and a black pupil, and does also have a nice gloss coat, but it is perfectly painted. And another thing I notice is how good the teeth look, actually, as far as the paintwork goes. Like, obviously they're not picture perfect, but there's my finger next to the head, and for the most part I would say those teeth are actually really precisely painted. There's not really much in the way of like sloppiness, it seems. For a factory painted figure, I would say the paintwork of the teeth is pretty impressive. I also quite like the fact that we kind of have like a bluish tone here on the inside of the mouth where the mouth is opening. That's not something you see too often. And when you look inside the mouth, obviously we've got a tongue and everything sculpted out in there. But we actually have some nice variation of color. I'm trying to get my camera to focus nicely in there. You can see the tongue, but you can also see some purples, pinks, reds, all sorts of coloration there for the inside of the mouth. Really nice red wash that definitely helps to highlight all of the detail in there. And the actual sculpt in there as well, again, incredible. Definitely giving you quite the impressive image of this thing coming right at your face with a bite to eat. We do have a darker tone, kind of like a really dark grayish tone up here on the top of the head, and as you move down you pick up more of a brownish tone, but you have a little bit of that darker tone kind of striping down here. As you move back into the neck, you actually see a green pickup, and although it is a darker green, it's kind of a vibrant green, if that makes any sense, almost like a Christmas tree type green. And then you also have a striping effect that moves down, moving along the course of the neck. And I like how you can see that smooth striping actually lead up into the darker greens up there. On top of that, we also actually have like a reddish tone, or more of like a red orange, that moves down along the side of the neck as well. But the striping does look really cool, definitely quite smooth as far as its application goes. You've got some really nice fine skin texture as you move down here into the underside of the lower jaw, leading into the throat, and then following down along the underside of the neck. And they've also applied like a dark wash, and they've applied it in a really subtle way where it absolutely highlights highlights all of the detail perfectly as you move down, showing you that, again, even though this kind of has like that smooth skin sort of a look, PNSO has found a great way to apply a ton of fine detail to it. We've got some nice creases here on the undersides of the arms as you move down, and we start to see a little bit of a different style scale detail here on the underside, a very reptilian style scale detail as you lead down. Of course, you've got kind of a smoother look to the skin texture as you move up. You can also see how that red-orange sort of like transitions away as you lead down into the body, and then you have kind of like yellows. It's almost like a yellowish green tone as you lead down, kind of giving me the feeling of how this thing would be able to really nicely camouflage in a swamp. As you lead further down, you've got the arms sculpted here really nicely. Again, the darker greens up here, but you can also see some slight variations of browns actually showing up as well. You can really see like the musculature of the arm, the honestly, the bone structure and everything as you lead down. As you lead into the fingers, you can see those as well, which are nicely sculpted. There's some nice webbing between those. And you can see the claws, which are painted with a white tone of color. As you lead up into the stomach, again, you have more of that kind of like yellowish green tone with more of that striping leading down from the green up there on the back. Really smooth, and it transitions away really smoothly as well. When we get nice and close, my camera doesn't focus correctly there, you can really get an appreciation for the fine skin texture of the figure, which does look really good. Again, you've got the spinal column moving along the back, and as we lead back further, you start to pick up some skin wrinkles and stuff leading closer to the rear leg, leading down through that leg. Again, the sculpt looks really nice. You've got the webbing in between the toes again, and you also have the claws painted with that white tone. A little sloppiness to the paintwork of the claws on this rear foot. And then you lead out into the tail. The tail does have a little bit of a curve to it, but pretty much follows the same style of paintwork as you lead out, with the different variations of greens and yellows and that striping effect with the curvatures of the tail, just adding that nice little bit of kind of elegance, I would say, to the figure as you lead along. And when you look at it from this side, it's pretty much going to look pretty close to the same way we had seen it on the first side. You know, these two rear legs are close to in the same position, and then when you move up here, the biggest difference is the fact that this leg is slightly in a different position compared to what we see on the opposing side, but not all that far off. The head is, well, the head and neck is also turned toward us in this direction, so it's turned toward the figure's right, and as you lead up, you'll again see how beautiful the really nice red-orange tone is that we move along through the side of the neck. And you can also, of course, see that beautiful little head sculpt. That's such a cute little face he's got there. Alright, kind of more of like an angry sort of creepy face, but it is a really nice looking figure. My camera absolutely hates focusing on it though when it's further away, but it's definitely very nicely done. As far as a size goes, for a length from the tail to the snout, about 9 inches pretty much on the dot, or around 23 centimeters. You're not going to get a whole lot in the way of a height, but at about 2¼ inches or 5½ centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect Day Human Being next to our Dinocephalosaurus, and you can see again, it's fairly small, not a huge figure by any means. I didn't expect it to be a huge figure though coming into this, and you can very clearly see that here next to these others. So when it comes to PNSO comparisons, or in general comparisons for this species, as I already mentioned, I don't have any other figures of this species exactly, so we could basically, as far as some PNSO comparisons go, for some aquatic and semi-aquatic figures that they've released. So here is the Atopodentatus next to our Dinocephalosaurus, which you can very clearly see is pretty similar as far as like the body mass, kind of, but the overall length is certainly not going to the Atopodentatus. Maybe if it had its body stretched out, actually, similar to the Dinocephalosaurus, it might be a little bit closer. We've also got the Dacosaurus that is about to have its head bitten off, but you can very clearly see again, the size is definitely in the favor of the Dinocephalosaurus. And then we've also got the very popular PNSO Dunkleosteus, which you can see again is a bit beefier than our Dinocephalosaurus. But I think the best comparison I could probably give you would be this one here with the Safari Ltd Tanystropheus. Now this figure is a repainted one that I had done many years ago, so it's not the greatest painted version of it, But you can see again, roughly they are in a very similar size range, with the Safari LTD version having a bit of a longer neck. But if you do have the Safari LTD Tanystropheus, I feel like that's going to give you a pretty good feel for the size of this one. I don't really know what else would really make a good comparison. There is the Mattel Tanystropheus, which would be of a similar size as well. And I really don't feel like that one's going to do any good as far as like a comparison goes here. So these two here are probably the best comparison I could give you. So this brand new PNSO Dinocephalosaurus is actually really nicely done. I would say one of their surprise hits, if you ask me, because it's a super cool species that I did not see coming. Sculpt-wise, I think they did a great job, as they always do. They are consistently nailing the sculpts of every figure they release, and for such an obscure species, it is so nice to see a good figure for it. The fine detail is really well done, about as much fine detail crammed into this figure as you could possibly give this creature. The sculpt overall has a pretty cool pose, especially when it comes to the mouth being wide open, making it look quite ferocious. The paintwork as well is very nice. It has some nice subtle striping, some beautiful tones of color, some vibrant red oranges, but also that kind of swampy kind of look, I would say, which definitely suits this species really well. So if you are interested in this, I will include a link in the description to where you can purchase it on the PNSO Amazon and Aliexpress stores. So check that link, definitely pick this up, and like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.